The Prime Minister is on the final leg of his tour in New York. My First Edition co-host Laura Jays is outside the United Nations for us this morning. Laura, good afternoon to you. What did Scott Morrison have to say about China?
Well, China has a self-determined emerging economy status, which gives it a number of trade concessions, for example. Now, in 2019, Scott Morrison is arguing that that status needs to be revisited. They should be classified as a newly developed nation, and some of those rules around trade, all big bodies like the WTO should get together with China and other nations and review that. Now, it is going to be a laborious process, a slow process to that point, and Scott Morrison admitted as much today.
We cannot pretend that rules that were written a generation ago remain appropriate for today. Why would that be true in this area and not in any other? It's clear that global trade rules are no longer fit for purpose, and in some cases the rules were designed for a completely different economy in another era, one that simply doesn't exist anymore.
And Laura, on to climate change, no further commitments from Australia?
No, and the UN General Assembly climate meeting was today. Scott Morrison wasn't here. He justified that, saying that the Foreign Minister was here representing Australia and that he'll make a speech later in the week at the UN General Assembly that will focus on climate. But acknowledging today that Australia isn't going to make any more commitments than it has beyond that pact made in Paris all those years ago. But perhaps it's a bit of a contrast and a bit of an awkward contrast. Donald Trump even dropped in on this climate change meeting today. And, of course, he now has pulled out of Paris, pulled the United States out of that Paris Climate Accord. This is what Scott Morrison had to say about not taking part in today's UN speech on climate, and he made these comments from Chicago.
New York, there's a lot of people there this week, and so I had the opportunity here to speak through a different channel. On Wednesday, when I give the national statement in the UN General Assembly, I'll be focusing very much on Australia's response to the global environmental challenges, which isn't just climate change. As I said today, it's about plastics, it's about oceans, it's about recycling.
Donald Trump also happened to walk right past Greta Thunberg today at the UN, and there was an almighty death stare there. I'll bring it to you in the next hour, Pete, if you haven't seen it already. It won't just be about climate here. There's a number of issues at play. What Australia and New Zealand will be focusing on in the coming days is countering violent extremism online. This is something the Prime Minister and Jacinda Ardern have been concentrating since the Christchurch attack, and they both hope to make headway here at the UN over the next couple of days.